Hello, my name is Jenny. I'm a student of English literature, and today I want to share my story with you. A story about how I started learning English, my first experiences, and the techniques that completely changed the way I learned. It was a beautiful summer day, and I was traveling on a train. Two women were sitting across from me, speaking in English. I could understand very little because I was just a beginner. I didn't know many words yet. Gathering some courage, I started speaking to them in simple English. I told them that I wanted to learn English. To my delight, they understood me perfectly and encouraged me. They told me they were from England and gave me their address and phone number, saying I could visit them someday. That short conversation sparked something inside me. After that day, I started working on my English every single day. I translated texts, watched films in English, and practiced whenever I could. After 6 months, my English had improved a lot. It was good, but I wanted to learn more. I wanted to study in London, immerse myself in the language, and experience English in real life. When I arrived in London, I joined a school. My first lesson was on Monday. I met my teacher, a young, kind, and humble lady, and my classmates. We introduced ourselves and started the lesson. Our teacher asked us about our general knowledge of English. Then she explained her method, a simple but highly effective way to learn English. She said we wouldn't study textbooks in the traditional way. Instead, we would use English actively in our daily lives. For me, this was perfect. I had always struggled with textbook learning. It confused me. But using English naturally, speaking, thinking, and communicating, that made sense. Our teacher told us something very important. Language is a tool for communication. To learn English effectively, we must use it to express ideas, feelings, and thoughts, not just memorize rules or vocabulary. And that's exactly what we did in class. We spoke English a lot, discussed our hobbies, shared our thoughts, and began using the language in ways that felt real and natural. Tuesday came, and I was back at school, excited for another lesson. One of the students asked an interesting question. What is the best way to learn new words? Our teacher smiled and said, there are many ways, but statistically, the most effective method is reading. She explained that reading helps you learn new words twice as fast as those who don't read. But there's a key. Choose books or texts that are interesting to you. It can be a story, fiction, non-fiction, whatever grabs your attention. Don't pick something boring or frustrating, especially if you're still learning. When you read and encounter a word you don't know, simply look it up in the dictionary, understand its meaning, and keep reading. You don't need to write it down. Your brain will naturally remember it. And every time you see that word again, you'll recognize it instantly. Reading also helps you see how words connect in sentences. You'll notice the natural flow of language, which improves both vocabulary and grammar without memorization. After that, we talked about practical matters like jobs for students in England. I asked my classmates where I could find a student job, and they suggested the local job center. I went there after school and learned I could work as a cafe waitress or cleaner. Even though I had no experience, my English was good enough to start at a cafe. The training wasn't hard, and it gave me the perfect chance to practice English in real life. By reading every day and using English actively, I realized that learning new words wasn't about memorization. It was about experience and exposure, and the results started showing quickly. On Wednesday, I returned to school, and I noticed a quiet student from South Korea. He rarely spoke in class because he was worried about his pronunciation. Even though he read and watched a lot in English, speaking was still a challenge for him. He finally asked our teacher a question. How can I improve my pronunciation? I understand English, but speaking is hard. Our teacher smiled and explained why many students struggle with pronunciation. She said that when we speak English, our mouth and facial muscles need to move differently than in our native language. Using the same movements we use in our own language can make our pronunciation sound different from native speakers. Then she introduced a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is simple, she said. You copy exactly what you hear, Just like children learn their first language, they repeat sounds over and over until their pronunciation becomes natural. She showed us videos and audios that were slow and clear so we could practice. We listened carefully and repeated every word, every intonation, and every rhythm. At first, it felt strange, but after a few minutes, I noticed my mouth and brain working together more smoothly. Our teacher added that shadowing is especially useful if you are preparing for presentations. You can practice alone for 10 minutes and notice how much it improves your pronunciation and confidence. After class, I visited the school reception to ask about sports activities. I love sports, and they offer table tennis and football teams. I joined the football training and met players from Brazil, Japan, Russia, Spain, Argentina, and Italy. Practicing English while doing something I enjoyed made learning fun and natural. That day, I realized, to improve pronunciation, repetition and practice are key. Shadowing connects your mind, mouth, and confidence all at once. On Thursday, a new student joined our class. Her name was Elizabeth, and she was from Italy. Our teacher immediately recognized her because she had attended a beginner's class 1 year ago. When Elizabeth spoke, her English was fluent, her pronunciation excellent. Our teacher was impressed and said, "Your school in Italy must be very good." Elizabeth smiled and shook her head. "No, I don't go to any school. I learned English at home using the techniques I learned from you. I read a lot, practice shadowing, and think aloud. I try to think in English more than in Italian. That's how I improved." I was curious. Thinking aloud? I asked our teacher. Our teacher explained, thinking aloud is a very effective technique. It may sound a little crazy at first, but it works wonders. The idea is to express your thoughts in English as you have them. Don't translate in your head, just speak what you think. Elizabeth shared her experience. When I started, I could only say simple sentences like, "I can speak English, I want to improve, I need to practice, my thoughts in Italian were too complicated at first, so I had to simplify them in English. At first, it was hard, but soon, thinking in English became natural. When I met a man from Australia while traveling, I could speak without translating in my head. Short sentences, yes, but real communication. I realized this technique could help me improve my speaking faster than anything else. It was about fluency and confidence, not perfection. From that day, I started practicing thinking aloud every day, speaking my thoughts in English, starting with simple sentences and gradually forming longer, more complex ideas. By Friday, I was starting to see real changes in my English. I could speak more confidently, my vocabulary was growing, and my pronunciation had improved thanks to shadowing. But my teacher reminded us that fluency isn't built in a classroom. Alone, it comes from practice. Every day, she said, to become fluent, you need 4 things daily: reading, listening, thinking, and speaking. 40 minutes for each. Consistency is key. I understood immediately that there were no shortcuts. Every activity reinforced the others. Reading built vocabulary, listening improved understanding. Thinking aloud helped me connect thoughts directly to words. And speaking allowed me to use everything in real life. After school, I went to my cafe job and put these lessons into practice. I listened carefully to customers, repeated phrases in my head, shadowed their intonation, and spoke as naturally as I could. Each interaction became a chance to apply what I learned. Even small successes felt rewarding. Ordering coffee without hesitation, talking with coworkers, or explaining a menu item all were exercises in real-life English. Mistakes happened, but every mistake became a lesson, and each conversation boosted my confidence. That evening, I reflected on the week. I realized that learning English was no longer about memorizing rules or vocabulary lists. It had become a part of my daily life, and every day, I was living English, not just studying it. On Saturday, our class focused on pronunciation and real-life practice. By now, I had already learned reading, listening, and thinking aloud, but today, our teacher emphasized shadowing in real-life situations. She explained, "Shadowing is about copying what you hear immediately. Match the speaker's rhythm, intonation, and pronunciation. It's how children learn their first language, and it works for English too." We practiced in pairs first. I felt my confidence growing with every sentence I repeated. Then, our teacher surprised us by taking the class to a nearby cafe. "Observe, listen, and repeat," she said. "Practice shadowing in real life. Don't be afraid. Every interaction is a chance to learn." I watched customers order, listened carefully, and whispered their sentences under my breath. Then I repeated them aloud, matching their tone and rhythm. At first, it felt strange. People glanced at me, but I didn't mind. This was practice, and it worked. Later, I went to my cafe job and applied the same technique. Listening carefully, repeating phrases, and thinking aloud helped me communicate clearly. Customers understood me better, and conversations flowed naturally. That day, I realized the power of shadowing outside the classroom. It wasn't just practice, it was living English, connecting study and real life. By the end of the day, I felt tired but accomplished. My confidence had grown, and for the first time, I felt I could speak English anywhere without fear. Monday arrived, and I could feel my progress growing each day. Reading, listening, thinking aloud, and shadowing, they were all working together. Today, our teacher focused on applying shadowing in everyday life. She reminded us of the quiet student from South Korea who had struggled with pronunciation. She said, "Shadowing isn't just for class. Use it everywhere. Copy native speakers in videos, podcasts, even conversations around you. It trains your brain and your mouth at the same time." We practiced inside the classroom first, repeating sentences aloud immediately after hearing them. It felt strange, but I noticed my confidence increasing with every repetition. Then, our teacher took us outside to a nearby cafe. "Observe, listen, and repeat. Use shadowing in real situations," she instructed. I watched people order, listened carefully, and repeated what I heard under my breath, then aloud. At first, people looked at me curiously, but I ignored them. This was real practice. Each repetition made my speech smoother, my rhythm more natural. Later that afternoon, at my cafe job, I applied the same technique. I shadowed customers' phrases, repeated them aloud, and practiced intonation. Every interaction was a learning moment. I realized something incredible. Shadowing isn't just a technique, it's a bridge between learning and real life. It trains you to speak naturally, confidently, and fluently. By the end of the day, I felt exhausted but accomplished. I could think in English and speak without hesitation. My confidence had grown dramatically, and I knew I was truly on the path to fluency. By Tuesday, I could feel real changes in my English. Reading, listening, and shadowing had improved my vocabulary and pronunciation. But there was one technique I was most curious about: thinking aloud. Our teacher explained it clearly. Thinking aloud means expressing your thoughts in English as they happen. Don't translate from your native language. Speak what you think, even if the sentences are simple. Elizabeth shared her experience with this technique. "When I started, I could only form small sentences. I can speak English. I want to improve. I need to practice. My thoughts in Italian were too complicated, so I had to simplify them in English. But soon, thinking in English became natural. I even spoke to a man from Australia on holiday, using simple sentences without translating in my head. Inspired, I began practicing thinking aloud every day. I spoke my thoughts in English, starting with simple sentences like, "I am walking to school. The sun is shining. I feel happy." At first, it felt strange. People glanced at me, but I didn't care. This was practice. Over time, my sentences became smoother. I paused less. I stopped translating in my head. English started to flow from my mind to my mouth naturally. I realized that combining thinking aloud with reading, listening, and shadowing created a complete system for learning English. Mistakes became opportunities, and each day brought improvement. Thinking aloud wasn't just a technique, it was a key to fluency, confidence, and real-life communication. By the following week, I could feel my English improving in ways I never imagined. Reading, listening, shadowing, and thinking aloud were all connecting. I was no longer just a student, I was living the language every single day. Our teacher reminded us, learning English is not about perfection, it's about practice. Live the language. Read, listen, think, speak every day. I remembered her words from day one, simple but powerful. Each technique reinforced the others. Vocabulary grew naturally through reading. Pronunciation improved with shadowing. Fluency developed by thinking aloud. And real-life conversations made it all meaningful. That week, we did a group activity. Each student shared their plans for the week in English. My sentences were short at first, but I noticed something exciting. I spoke more confidently, pausing less and thinking directly in English. After class, I went to my caf job. I applied everything I had learned, listening carefully, shadowing phrases, speaking confidently. Every interaction became an opportunity to practice and improve. I realized an important truth. Fluency isn't learned in textbooks, it's built through real-life use, mistakes, and practice. By the end of the month, I could have full conversations, express my thoughts clearly, and speak without translating in my head. I reflected on that first train ride when two women encouraged me. That small moment had sparked this entire journey. Every class, every conversation, every technique, reading, listening, shadowing, thinking aloud built on that spark. And the most important lesson I learned, English is more than words and grammar. It's a way of living, thinking, and connecting with the world. By now, I could see how far I had come, and I wanted to share what I had learned with anyone trying to master English. Learning English isn't about studying harder, it's about living the language every single day. Here's what I follow and recommend to every learner. 1. Read every day. Pick books, articles, or stories that interest you. Enjoy the material. Don't force yourself to read boring texts. Reading naturally grows your vocabulary and understanding. 2. Listen every day. Podcasts, audiobooks, videos, anything in English. Pay attention to pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. Listen actively and repeat phrases out loud when you can. 3. Think in English. Stop translating in your head. Form simple sentences first, then gradually build more complex thoughts. Thinking in English prepares your mind to speak fluently. 4. Speak aloud every day. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Speak to yourself, to friends, or in real-life situations. Mistakes are part of learning. Each conversation builds confidence. 5. Use shadowing. Copy native speakers immediately after hearing them. Match their intonation, rhythm, and pronunciation. Shadowing trains your mouth and brain together. 6. Practice thinking aloud. Say your thoughts in English every day. Start small, then expand. This builds fluency faster than memorizing grammar alone. 7. Make English part of your life. Speak, write, read, listen every day. Treat every conversation as practice. Real life is the best classroom. Finally, remember, fluency doesn't happen overnight. Mistakes will happen. Frustration will happen. But every effort counts. Every conversation, every thought aloud, every sentence written brings you closer to mastery. When I think back to that first train ride, the two women encouraging me, I realize learning English is not just words. It's about courage, consistency, and living the language fully. Follow these steps, practice every day, and your English will grow. You won't just know the language, you'll think, speak, and live it. By the time I had spent a few months in London, I started reflecting on my journey. It wasn't just about learning grammar or vocabulary. Anymore, it was about growth and transformation. I remembered that first day on the train, nervous and shy, barely able to form a sentence. That small conversation with two women sparked everything. Every small step after that mattered. Now, I could see the difference. I spoke more naturally, without translating in my head. I listened actively and understood much more. I wasn't afraid of mistakes, they became tools for improvement. I had new friends from all over the world, sharing stories, cultures, and languages. My teacher often said, "Learning a language is not a race, it's a journey, it's a lifestyle. Every day, you improve consistently." And she was right. Each technique I had learned, reading, shadowing, thinking aloud, speaking, worked together. Alone, none would have brought the results I wanted. Together, they formed a complete system. I also realized that learning English changed more than my communication skills. It changed my mindset. I became more patient, curious, and confident. I could confidently say, "I am not just learning English, I am living it." To anyone starting this path, don't rush. Don't compare yourself to others. Focus on consistent practice, embrace mistakes, and make English part of your life, because fluency is not just about words. It's about thinking, speaking, and living the language naturally. After months of practice, I realized that the key to fluency wasn't just techniques, it was a daily routine. Every day became a building block for my English skills. Morning, I start with reading for 30–40 minutes. I pick books or articles that interest me. While reading, I notice new words and sentence structures. I don't force memorization, my brain naturally absorbs the language. Late morning, next, I spend time listening. Podcasts, audiobooks, or videos help me focus on pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation. I pause and repeat sentences, practicing shadowing. Afternoon, I practice thinking aloud. Simple sentences at first, like, "I am walking in London. The sun is shining. I feel happy." Gradually, I form longer sentences. Speaking my thoughts aloud trains my brain and mouth to work together naturally. Evening, finally, I speak with others, classmates, co-workers at my cafe job, or even just to myself at home. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is communication. Mistakes happen, but each one is a step closer to fluency. Throughout the day, I review vocabulary and grammar naturally by noticing them in context. I realize something important. Fluency isn't built in one huge effort, it's built through small, consistent steps every day. By following this routine, I could see real results. My sentences became smoother. My confidence grew. I could participate in conversations without fear. Consistency, practice, and real-life application, this is the path to mastering English. After weeks of following my daily routine, I noticed something amazing. My English was no longer just something I studied, it was something I lived. The real test came when I started using it in real-life conversations, outside the classroom and cafe. One afternoon, I decided to explore London and talk to people I met. At first, I was nervous. My heart raced every time I started speaking, but I reminded myself of all the techniques I had learned. Shadowing, thinking aloud, reading, and listening. I just had to apply them. I stopped at a small bookstore and asked the shop assistant for book recommendations. I described the types of books I liked in simple English. She was patient, encouraging me to continue. Every sentence I spoke felt like practice. Every response gave me feedback. Later, I walked into a cafe and ordered coffee entirely in English. The barista smiled and responded naturally. I practiced shadowing by repeating her phrases in my mind, matching her rhythm and pronunciation. Then, I met a tourist from Canada. We talked about London, favorite places, and cultural differences. I realized something incredible. I could hold a full conversation in English, using vocabulary I had learned from reading, pronunciation from shadowing, and thoughts from thinking aloud. I left that cafe feeling proud and confident. I understood an important truth. Fluency is built in real life, not just in classrooms. No matter how many textbooks you study, real progress comes from speaking, listening, and interacting. Mistakes are part of learning, and each conversation is a lesson. From that day on, I made a commitment. Every opportunity, no matter how small, would be a chance to practice English. And by doing this, my fluency, confidence, and ability to think in English continued to grow. Even though my English was improving every day, learning a new language in a foreign country wasn't always easy. There were moments of frustration, confusion, and self-doubt. But I quickly realized that these challenges were not obstacles. They were opportunities to grow. Sometimes I struggled to find the right words in conversation. I mispronounced words and worried others wouldn't understand me. Other times, unfamiliar grammar or tricky vocabulary made me feel overwhelmed. But my teacher had taught me something crucial. Mistakes are part of learning. Don't fear them. Embrace them. Every mistake teaches you something new. I repeated this to myself constantly. Every mistake became a lesson. Every challenge became a step forward. To stay motivated, I set small daily goals. Read for at least 30 minutes. Listen to English through podcasts, videos, or audiobooks. Think aloud to connect thoughts directly to words. Speak whenever possible, even small conversations. Shadowing to improve pronunciation and rhythm. I also celebrated small victories. Ordering coffee without hesitation. Talking to strangers. Understanding stories without translating. Each success reminded me that progress was real. Another strategy I used was keeping a language journal. I wrote about my day, noted new words, and reflected on conversations. Writing reinforced my learning and helped me track progress. I learned a valuable lesson. Consistency beats intensity. Even 1 hour of focused practice daily makes a huge difference over time. And I remembered why I started this journey. I wanted to live fully in English, not just study it. That motivation carried me through the hard days, and it pushed me to keep practicing, speaking, and improving, no matter what. At last, I could reflect on my journey. From the first day on the train, struggling to speak a few words, to now, months later, I could speak confidently, think in English, and live the language every day. That morning, I sat in class, feeling grateful for everything I had learned. Our teacher smiled and said, "Remember, learning English is not a destination, it's a journey. It's about how you use the language, how you live it, and how you practice every single day." I thought back to all the techniques that had changed my learning. Reading every day to grow vocabulary naturally. Listening actively to understand pronunciation and rhythm. Shadowing to train my mouth and brain together. Thinking aloud to connect thoughts directly to words. Speaking in real life to practice communication and confidence. Each of these steps had been important, but together, they had transformed my English from something I studied to something I lived. After class, I walked through London, remembering that shy beginner on the train. I felt proud not because I was perfect, but because I had kept going, practiced consistently, and embraced every mistake. I realized learning English wasn't just about words. It taught me patience, resilience, and courage. I could step out of my comfort zone, meet new people, experience new cultures, and grow in ways I never imagined. Now, every conversation, every book, every thought spoken aloud is an opportunity to grow. By living English daily, my fluency grew stronger and my confidence soared. And the most important lesson I learned: fluency is not a magic trick. It's the result of consistent practice, courage, and truly living the language. This journey changed my life forever, and I know it will continue to guide me every day.